In St. Lucia, rice, flour, and sugar are basic staples in nearly every household. With subsidies in place, these products are sold at reduced prices, providing some relief to families who might otherwise be unable to afford them. Richard Peterkin, a respected authority in accounting and economics, shared his insights on the government subsidies for essential staples such as rice, flour, and sugar. He emphasized that while these subsidies aim to ease the financial strain on consumers, they have a considerable long-term effect on the national budget. Peterkin began by outlining the advantages of these subsidies.
One of the benefits of subsidies is that it makes goods more affordable, particularly to those who are, not as disadvantaged, put it this way. And it's a basic commodity. And the poor and they can't afford very expensive things. It also, to some extent, controls inflation, particularly when inflation is high across the board, not just in the basic commodities. And so subsidies, again, keeps the prices of things within affordable reach. And then it sometimes will maintain vital industries.
Peterkin elaborated that while the intention behind subsidies is noble, they can distort market behavior and lead to inefficient allocation of resources.
The other side of the sword is that you cannot subsidize everything. There are certain basic things that the government, in essence, has to deal with that is not necessarily a subsidy. They can't, for example, afford to subsidize wages. And, in fact, what they have now introduced is a minimum wage, which I think at the end of the day is in the best interest of those who have been, getting wages that are not livable. They cannot survive on those wages. But unfortunately, some of the industries, the very industries like baking, that have been benefiting from subsidies in terms of flour and sugar, are now complaining because they're finding themselves having to pay more to the workers.
He highlighted the importance of balancing the immediate relief that subsidies provide with their long-term sustainability.
We can't simply continue forever to subsidize, in the way that we have, and assume that that's just always going to be available. For one thing, the cost of those subsidies, and we've had to subsidize gas at times. Now we're subsidizing those products. Some of those subsidies, I believe, are costing us more than $20 million a year. And that puts a different burden on the people of St. Lucia for the government to actually find the money to pay those subsidies.
The St. Lucia Bakers Association has recently expressed concerns about the increase in operational costs due to the newly introduced minimum wage, despite the government's long-standing subsidies on sugar and flour. Peterkin offered his perspective on this issue.
And sticking with bread, finding ways that the bakers can work together, perhaps using the private sector as well to obtain and using procurement that obtains prices at the best possible price and handles it as efficiently as possible, even if it means that the government, just like they do with gas, has to put in an element of subsidy in terms of what they may be charging on the goods coming in, or even a price control.
The Economist proposed a solution for managing subsidies in St. Lucia, suggesting that the government and private sector work in collaboration.
There's probably going to have to be a continuation of subsidies in terms of those products. What the chamber and the private sector would like to see is a greater cooperation in terms of how that is done. Government is not always the most efficient manager of buying and selling anything. And better to let it be done on a private sector level, and they just manage and control the pricing element and part of it.
While subsidies on rice, flour, and sugar continue to provide much-needed support for households, the conversation around their long-term sustainability and impact is becoming more urgent. The government is faced with the challenge of balancing immediate consumer relief with the broader economic health of the nation. For Choice News Now, I am Direct Lionel.